What's going on, guys? Dr.MooMoo here, and welcome on back to another video, where today I will be reviewing in a tier list every movie, TV show, game I watched or played in the month of October. Without further ado, let's just hop into the tier list here. I don't have too much this month compared to others. I believe it's less at least. Maybe it's more. I don't know. I don't remember. But first here we have The End Is Nigh, which is Bill Nye's new show where he does 6 episodes where each one is about how the world could end, and most of them are our fault, usually. But he also gives us ways to prevent it, so it's not like all bad. He's like, there's ways to prevent this, and it usually involves politics. No, kind of. Anyway, the show is fun. Like, it's not as bad as his Netflix show, which I thought was very bad. But I wouldn't say it's as fun as the original Bill Nye show, but it's still good. Fun time. In each episode, these are kind of spoilers, I guess, for this show, but in each episode, towards the end, he dies, and the first time it was really funny. And it's really funny every time. Some of them are better deaths than the others. The first one's probably the best just because I wasn't expecting him to quite literally just die at the end. But the science behind it, he goes over everything, all the different storms. The CGI is obviously not the best because it's a Bill Nye TV show, but it still was a fun time, and I had fun with it, and I'd recommend it if you're into Bill Nye or science-y type stuff, or want to know how we can prevent the end of the world, or like disaster movies. Maybe this is for you too. Not really, kind of. It's a fun time. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in B tier. Next up, we have the movie Bros, which is a romantic comedy. I don't really like romantic comedies, but this one was rather enjoyable. I actually found the jokes funny, and the romance was compelling. There's a scene on a beach where the character gets into emotional depth in a way I didn't think the movie was going to get as deep as it did on that beach scene, but it did. And that beach scene was pretty good as a result. The chemistry between the main characters is believable, especially as it develops further and further into it. There's one cameo jump scare towards the end. Won't tell you who it is, but you have been warned that you will be scared and you might die if you see the cameo person, depending on how much you hate the person I'm talking about. This is going to make no sense to someone who hasn't seen the movie. But, yeah. Anyway, the romance is good. Chemistry between the main characters is good. The comedy's good, which is, you want that for a romantic comedy. Not all the comedy hits, and not all the romantic beats hit, and the third act's boring. Most romantic comedy third acts are boring when they break up, and it's like, oh, great, we're going to be broken up for 15 minutes for no reason. There is a reason, and you get that it kind of has to happen, but does it? Does it really? Can you do something different, maybe? I don't know. That part's always boring, and that's the only reason I want to give it a perfect score. But if you like romantic comedies, it's definitely going to be up your alley, because it's one of the better ones of those, at least in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and put Bros in good tier. I'll put it above The End Is Nigh. Next up, we have Werewolf By Night, Marvel's first special presentation. At least I think it's their first. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Anyway, I enjoyed this short film. Is that what we're going to call it? I enjoyed this special presentation, mainly because it was so different from anything else Marvel has done for the past years, really. They've been mostly doing action comedies, so they get tiresome after a while, especially when they're all superhero focused. But Werewolf by Night is more of a homage to some classic Universal monster horror films, such as The Werewolf. What's the werewolf one called? Is it just called The Werewolf? Wolfman, maybe? I don't know. Teen Wolf. No. Wrong movie. Anyway, this one felt so different from anything else Marvel has put out, so it's probably the one from this year I'm going to remember the most when I think back on it. Probably. Maybe I'll forget about this one completely as well. But I'm glad to see Marvel try something else than what they usually do, so this didn't really feel like a Marvel movie, which is good. That's what I want. It's also a very fun time. I loved what is he, Man-Thing? I almost said Swamp Thing. I think Swamp Thing's DC though. Man-Thing was cool. It being in black and white as a homage to the Universal Monster Pictures, that was neat. I enjoyed it. The plot itself is fun. It's just an enjoyable time. It's nothing like too special or anything. It's just the fact that it's different, I think, elevated it for me. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in great tier. Next up here, we have Harley Quinn Season 3. This season focuses more on Harley Quinn and Ivy's relationship. Ivy wants to take over the world through plant stuff, but does Harley really want to, or is Harley just following because she likes her? That's for you to decide. I'm not going to spoil anything, the ending or anything. One of my complaints is that Clayface and King Shark aren't in it enough, but that kind of makes sense since it's focused on Harley and Ivy. Batgirl gets a lot of time too, her relationship with Harley and how they're friends now, and maybe Harley's a good guy, is she? Who knows? Batman's in it quite a bit as well. James Gunn cameos in it. There's a couple cameos in this one. Joker's a hoot still. I like Joker in this. Joker's fun. Anyway, it's a good, funny time. It's obviously not anything outstanding or anything. Well, it kind of is. So, with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and put Harley Quinn in great tier. I'll put it above Werewolf by Night. Next, I played the game NieR Automata for the first time. This is the game I played was the Nintendo Switch edition, which, based off the comparisons I saw on like YouTube, it's not as graphically good looking as like the PS4, PS5 edition, obviously, because it's the Switch version. But the only time I had any like frame rate or lag drop things is at one point in the game, and that's when like a bunch of enemies were on the screen. But other than that, I was surprised by the lack of lag I got. Very good to see. So that didn't hinder my experience at all, it being on Switch. At least I don't think it did. I would give this a perfect score, but one thing keeps it from that. I thought the gameplay got a bit repetitive towards the end, and that's why I wouldn't give this quite there at the perfect status. But that's the only real complaint I have with it. I thought the characters were great and fun. The world itself is really fun to traverse through. The enemies, while might get a bit stale, especially since you're fighting them so often, I thought they were fun. The bosses were really fun as well, I thought. The game is super cool. The gameplay isn't like completely boring, especially when you're first getting it. You're like, oh, this is kind of fun. But just towards the end, it starts getting repetitive, and you're like, I gotta fight a bunch of people again. Here I go, pressing buttons and all that. But yeah, it's a fun game. I would highly recommend it if you're into RPGs or story-based games at all, because this has a pretty good story. There's multiple different endings to get. I only got 2 of the endings. I know the third ending has a lot to it, but I just decided I didn't want to play it, especially since I was bored at the combat at that point. I'll probably pick it up again, though. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put NieR Automata in great tier above Harley Quinn right there at the top. The very first of great tier. It's the great tier. It's the first one of great tier. Ooh-wee, next up we have MCU's newest show, the She-Hulk show, and she is a Hulk, after all, and she Hulk around. That's the plot. This show was super boring and unfunny. The character, they tried to make likable, but in the first episode, she immediately just, like, hates on Bruce for no reason. Like, it would make sense. This has been talked about. That scene has been talked about. There's a scene to death. There's a scene where she makes fun of Bruce and saying, I have to control my anger significantly more than you do, even though he's almost committed suicide canonically, and no one likes that scene, and it makes sense why. And that some people argue, oh, that's just showing that she actually does get angry. But no, the exact point in that scene was that was to show that she doesn't get angry because she controls the Hulk during that scene. It's terrible writing. I do not like the writing. The jokes are not funny. There's one good episode, and it's probably just because Daredevil's in it, and I just have a Daredevil bias. I don't know. Maybe I'm tired of Marvel, and that's probably true. Maybe I'm tired of superhero movies because they're all the exact same comedy action movies. And the jokes aren't funny in this one even. And this one doesn't even have that good of an action. It's got nothing going for it. It is awful. She-Hulk herself, besides making fun of people, I guess she's fine as a character. Also, okay, it's a lawyer show, but the writers, and they said this, they don't know how to make a lawyer show, so they didn't make it a lawyer show. Give this show to someone who knows how to make a lawyer show. The whole point of the character is that she is a lawyer, and they have lawyer scenes, of course, that she's in the court, but they're not fun. There's no fun. There's no, like, objection. I don't think she says objection once. She might. I don't know. That doesn't matter. The court scenes are not fun. None of this is fun. Abomination's lame now. They made Abomination lame. That Hulk's already ruined for the MCU since they gave him Professor Hulk, which made sense, I guess, plotline in Endgame, but now he is so boring after Endgame, post-Endgame world. I hated this show so much. It was so boring, but I'm not going to put it in awful. I'm just going to go ahead and put She-Hulk in bad. Yippee, MCU, yeah. Woohoo. Next up, we have the movie The Black Phone, and it is something. It's fine. It's okay. It feels rather bland for a thriller, horror type of thing. Ethan Hawke's pretty good, I guess. I mean, he's just an average bad dude, I guess. Just a weirdo, a psychopath. Your average psychopath. The main kid, he's a good actor. It's not, like, annoying like a majority of kid actors are. So that's good. I don't have much to say about this. It was just a movie that existed and I watched it. Yep, that's all I'm going to say about this one. I'm going to go ahead and put Black Phone in okay. Oh yeah, it's Owl House time. We got Owl House Season 3, Episode 1, thanks to them. I'm doing these episodes individually since they're basically specials and they're being released so far apart, so I don't forget my thoughts on them or anything. So that's why this one's alone. Anyway, this episode is tremendous. It's the opposite of Season 1, where the Luz is thrown into the magical world. Now the magical characters are thrown into the real world. And this fish out of water plot could be annoying, but since these characters have been so well established in past seasons and the characters are so fun, it never gets boring. Spoilers ahead for these next couple seconds because I want to touch on them. Luz has a secret that she thinks will cause her to lose her friends, which makes sense for her to think. This secret she's keeping, if she tells them, it makes sense for her to think that they'll no longer want to be her friend and they'll hate her. But in my opinion, her friends wouldn't reasonably turn on her. From our perspective, we wouldn't find that believable, if that makes any sense. And thankfully, the show doesn't go through with this. When they finally find out that she was lying and that she caused Bellows to become the power that he was, they don't really get mad at her. They just kind of get mad at her for the lying, but they don't like break up with her. They don't want to not be friends anymore. They get through it very quickly, and I think that's how that would reasonably end. The final fight takes a tremendous leap in animation quality. It's like, it looks so impressive. It's very good. It's so good. Camilla is so sweet. I love her. And I love how she changes her mind on Luz returning to the demon realm and even decides to go with her in the end. The only thing keeping it from perfect is the middle bit was a bit bland, but overall, I have high expectations for the next 2 episodes since this one was such a banger. I'm going to put Owl House Season 3, Episode 1, thanks to them, in good tier. Or great tier, actually. I'm going to put it below NieR Automata. Next, I watched the movie The Big Lebowski, and I thought it was a fun time. The plot is super crazy, but I feel like that's the point of the movie. The dude's ability to just abide, as he says, is tested thanks to this crazy and wacky plot, and in the end, I believe he succeeds in this. The main character never learns a lesson, which I think adds to the comedy in a good way, and when it ended, I was super confused. The character never learned anything. They never even went through the big bowling thing they were all leading up to. This big bowling tournament never actually happened. The movie just ended. And for that, I thought I didn't like the movie. However, when I looked back on it the next day, these scenes that added essentially nothing to the whole point and plot of this film is the movie itself. These scenes are what the movie is. This movie is just one big who cares. For that, I look back on it fondly. The movie seems so bizarre, and it is, in a perfect way. Nothing happens in this movie, but the movie still deserves to be put in great tier, which is just incredible. I'll go ahead and put it in between The Owl House and Harley Quinn. Next, I watched Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street, which is about this shady stock trader who makes a ton of money, illegally mostly. Well, I guess always. Let's start with the acting. Leonardo DiCaprio is stellar in this movie, and I can now agree with the people who say that he was robbed of an Oscar for both his amazing performance in Django Unchained and this movie. He is America in this movie. He is such a rude character, but you still love him. Sort of like a ruder Walter White in like early seasons. I guess Saul Goodman's a better comparison. He's kind of like a Saul Goodman. Jonah Hill surprised me in this as well. I really only knew him as the Megamind nerd prior to watching this, so I wasn't aware of his full acting potential, and I think he shines in this. This movie is pretty goofy in a way I can't really describe, but I think this adds to the charm. This movie never bores and keeps going and going with no real break. I don't think it is quite the masterpiece other people say it is. I believe the final third or fourth is a bit weak, but I would still put it in great tier. I'll put it just below The Big Lebowski. Next, I watched the movie Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and this was my Halloween horror movie for the month. As you can see, it's really the only one I watched, unless you count Black Phone, I guess. And maybe The End is Nigh. That was pretty spooky. Anyway, since it is the spookiest time of the year, and I'm not talking about bloody tax time, this made the movie even more spookier. Jokes aside, though, this movie obviously isn't very scary. The budget feels low and the acting is not the best. This film makes up for all that, though, by having just the most goofiest concepts that somehow work really well. Like one scene where a clown is doing really good shadow puppets, it suddenly uses the shadow puppet to eat a group of humans. This super wacky and fun type of humorous moments are really just a fun time. The characters are nothing special, and it's clear the real charm of the movie comes from these wacky scenes the clowns do. Also, the costuming or makeup or whatever it is really impressive, so major props to that and whoever worked on that. With all that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and put Killer Klowns from Outer Space in great tier. I'll put it just behind Harley Quinn. Next, I watched the movie Zodiac, and I can say what most people have already said, that this is the best and my favorite serial killer movie I've ever seen, although keep in mind I haven't seen 7 yet. This movie is so tense and has some terrifying moments. The scariest part is that this is mostly a true story. The poster making scene in particular is super tense and kept me on the edge of my seat. The acting is really good. Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo, and Robert Downey Jr. all really sell their addiction to this case in finding the Zodiac killer. The characters get so addicted to their case, they're either losing themselves, like I believe RDJ's character did, or the people they really care about, like how Robert Graysmith loses the woman he loves and his children. All the characters put their lives on the line to find this killer, to the point it's like a drug for them. If you are really into suspenseful or serial killer movies, then I recommend giving Zodiac a try. And with that, I'm putting Zodiac in great tier, just behind The Wolf of Wall Street. Next, I watched the movie Black Adam. Woo-wee, here we go, another superhero movie, yippee! I'll give them some credit though, because I can at least see and feel some originality in this I haven't felt in a Marvel film in a while. The movie isn't bad or anything, but as I said, I'm getting sort of tired of all these superhero movies. I find myself looking forward to very few now, like Guardians 3 is pretty much it. Anyways, back to the movie. The action scenes are mostly great, and it's obvious that is where this movie thrives. I love Dr. Fate, and I think Pierce Brosnan probably did the best acting in this movie of the group. The Rock is just playing who he always plays, a big, strong man who is pretty one-dimensional. Which sucks, because somebody needs to give him a role he can actually act in, since John Cena was able to show his acting capabilities in Peacemaker. The Atom Smasher dude was annoying, and I can't remember the name or a single line Tornado Lady said. Hawkman was fine, he served his purpose, and him realizing Black Adam isn't the main threat was good. And that's what I think this movie is, just good. I'll put it at the end of good tier. The last thing I watched this month was Tales of the Jedi. This is a group of short episodes that tell untold stories of the Jedi. This season, and hopefully there is more seasons, focuses on Ahsoka and Dooku. The Ahsoka episodes were good, with my favorite being episode 5, which had her training to fight by fighting clone troopers, which not only showed how she became a strong Jedi, but also shows how she was able to survive Order 66 with Rex since she was training against all these clones. We also see Ahsoka as a baby and her mom was a good fighter like her, and it shows Ahsoka use the Force for the first time presumably, which is nice. The final episode had Ahsoka realize maybe she should come out of hiding, which is a great prequel to her appearance in Rebels and her reappearance into the Star Wars world after the Clone Wars. The best part of this show, though, were the Dooku episodes. Seeing Dooku slowly realize the Republic and Jedi might not be as good as he sees them as before, and his turn to the dark side is truly believable with this. Episode 4, The Sith Lord, is my favorite of the whole season. It takes place at pretty much the same time as Phantom Menace, and includes a really fun fight against Yaddle. I really like the Clone Wars animation style, and seeing how much it was improved over time is really fun to see. Tales of the Jedi is a good watch for any Star Wars fans, and I'm going to put it just behind Zodiac in great tier. Looking forward to seeing more tales of these Jedis that I hear so much about. And that concludes the tier list of everything I watched and played in the month of October. Next month should have much more than this month had, or at least I plan on it having much more, but we will see. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side, the flippity flop side.